Rebecca slid the salad bowl across the table without looking at me. It stopped just short of my elbow, like I wasn't a person, just a space to be navigated around. Denise laughed at something on her phone and said, "Oh my God, did you see what Julie posted?" Rebecca snorted. Yeah, her fiancé's like 10 years younger than her. That's kinda sad. I opened my mouth, just slightly, to ask how the caterer meeting went, but Denise stood up before I got the first word out and said, "Becca, come help me with dessert." No one said, "Excuse me." No one even glanced at me. That was the third dinner this week where I felt like a ghost with a heartbeat. I know what you're thinking. What did I do? Did I cheat? Did I yell? Did I stop trying? No. I was boring. I paid bills. I fixed sinks. I took quiet pride in oil changes and properly filed tax returns. I became invisible by being reliable. That's how it starts. Not with slamming doors, but with the quiet shuffling of chairs that don't face you anymore. The last thing Rebecca said to me that week, actually to me, not near me, was, "Are you really wearing that to the florist?" Not, "How are you, Dad?" Not, "Thanks for driving me." Just that. I wish I could say it was sudden, that there was a fight or a moment of betrayal. But no, the air just stopped carrying my voice to their ears. One night I knocked on our bedroom door. Yes, my own bedroom, because I'd been on the guest bed for 2 weeks, and I asked, quietly, "Do you still want me involved in the planning?" Denise didn't look up from her laptop. "Well, do you want to be?" And that wasn't a question. It was a trap, because if I said yes, I'd be accused of controlling things. If I said no, I'd be accused of not caring. I stood there like an idiot, mouth open, until she sighed dramatically, muttered figures, and closed the laptop. Conversation over. That's when I checked Rebecca's tablet, charging on the kitchen counter, and saw it. A group chat with Denise, Rebecca, and her 2 bridesmaids. A screenshot of my RSVP comment on the online invite. My name circled. "He's trying again," Rebecca wrote. Underneath, "He'll give up soon." Laughter emojis. One of them had even said, "He won't last the month." That's when something in me didn't just crack. It evaporated. Like the version of me they thought I was, the man too dull to notice he was being erased, was just an old photograph someone left in the sun too long. And hey, since more than 97% of you listening right now haven't hit that subscribe button, maybe do it. It helps the team keep digging up stories like this one. And trust me, it gets much darker. Back to it. I didn't say anything that night. Didn't scream, didn't confront. I just sat at the table and finished loading the dishwasher while Denise live texted someone from the couch, and Rebecca practiced her "thank you for coming" speech into her phone like I didn't exist. But here's what they didn't know. I'd already stopped direct depositing into our joint account 2 months ago, quietly opened a different mailbox, used a VPN to research lawyers in 3 different states, sold my stake in the consultancy no one remembered I helped build, transferred proceeds into a silent holding trust managed through an old friend from grad school, who owed me. That night, while they watched a bridal reality show, I was watching them. Not like a husband, like a man gathering evidence for a hostile takeover. I remember Denise looking up once and frowning. "Why are you staring?" I smiled, just admiring the view. She rolled her eyes and went back to her show. She had no idea I meant my view of what I was leaving behind. By then, I already knew the exact date I'd be gone. I just hadn't told them yet. I left at 4:03 a.m., not because of sentiment, because that's when the neighborhood dogs are least likely to bark, and the joggers haven't started yet. My suitcase, military-grade hardshell, matte black, made exactly 2 clicks when it hit the trunk liner. I closed it gently. Not a slam, not a bang, just final. The house was quiet, not the peaceful kind, the eerie kind like it knew. Denise had left a wine glass on the counter again. I stared at it longer than I should have. Half-finished Pinot, lipstick smear. She'd never cleaned up after herself when she drank. But back when she cared about being a wife, she used to rinse it out at least. I set my keys down beside it. There was a moment, brief, stupid, where I thought I should leave a note. Maybe something profound. Something movie-worthy, like "you'll understand someday." But I didn't owe them poetry. I owed them absence. So instead, I opened the kitchen drawer, pulled out the manual for the security system, disabled every indoor cam, reset the Wi-Fi, wiped the app from my phone. No breadcrumbs. Then I opened my wallet, took out the last remaining joint credit card, hers technically, and cut it in half. I left it on the counter next to the keys. A perfect little lineup. House key, car key, shredded plastic. 3 pieces of me they could no longer use. The fog outside was heavy, like the world didn't want to witness what I was doing. Fine. Let it look away. The dashboard lit up. My new prepaid phone buzzed once. An automated update from the digital mailbox in Montana. Placeholder address. Clean. Remote. Legal. I turned off the notifications. I wouldn't need reminders. I drove exactly 22 minutes to a long-term lot outside a regional airport. Parked. Walked to a shuttle. Then to a terminal. Then to a gate where I handed over a passport Denise didn't know existed. One from my time consulting overseas. Long before marriage taught me how easily people can unsee the man who makes things run. You ever notice how people look at you when you're alone at an airport? If you're a man with gray at the temples, dressed too plain to be rich but too polished to be poor, they look through you. Like you're in between something. A layover. A mistake. I liked that. Made the next move easier. The flight was 5 hours. Just long enough to finalize the asset transfer from my consulting sale into the trust. I did it from a secure portal on the plane. The woman next to me asked if I worked in finance. No, I said. I used to work in maintenance. She laughed politely and turned back to her magazine. That's the thing about people. They only dig for meaning when you offer them mystery. Otherwise, they let you vanish in plain sight. When we landed, my driver was already waiting. Former Air Force. Retired. No questions asked. He drove me 90 minutes north into a forested valley where I'd leased a private cabin. Fully paid. 3 years in advance. Under the holding name of a dissolved LLC. He said, "Expecting visitors?" I said, "Just ghosts." That night, I slept for the first time in 31 nights. No footsteps in the hallway. No passive-aggressive coughing from the other side of the wall. No fluorescent buzz of her phone screen lighting up while I pretended not to care. Just dark. Just silence. Just me. By the next morning, my name was off every public record I could reach. DMV, updated. Socials, wiped. Voting registry, anonymized through a legal privacy proxy in Delaware. It wasn't illegal, just inconvenient. For them. Denise called once. My number was already gone. Rebecca texted? To the group chat she didn't know I'd screen captured and saved. They didn't post anything right away. No Instagram, where is he? Panic. No missing husband alert. Because that would have required admitting I mattered. And for now, it was easier for them to pretend I was sulking somewhere, waiting to be begged back. They didn't know I wasn't retreating. I was rebooting. Quietly. Methodically. And unlike them, I always read the fine print. 3 days after I vanished, Denise hosted wine night like nothing had changed. Her curated little clique, 2 yoga moms, 1 former HR director turned life coach, and someone's sister-in-law with a Botox discount, sat around our reclaimed wood dining table, sipping Chardonnay and trading half-whispers like they were auditioning for a Netflix reboot of Desperate and Defensive. She didn't even cry. One of them later told a mutual friend. She just said, "Well, looks like he finally cracked." By the end of that first week, the official story was circulating. I'd bailed on the family. No context. No detail. Just a vague smear of male fragility, served cold with brie. He couldn't handle the pressure, Denise told her Pilates instructor. He ghosted us, she told the neighbor who asked about my car being gone. When Rebecca posted a filtered black and white photo of her and Denise with the caption, "Stronger together, broken heart," I knew it was starting to stick. Narratives are powerful, especially the ones that make you the hero by default. Denise didn't scream about betrayal. She sighed. She didn't rage. She looked wounded. That's how you win social sympathy. Not by flailing, but by framing. And she was a master at it. Rebecca, for her part, didn't say much at first. But 2 weeks later, her friends started seeing little cracks. They'd ask, "Wait, your dad just left? Didn't say anything?" She'd nod, eyes glassy. No warning. No fight. Just gone. Did he leave a note? No. Not even a text. The brunch table would collectively exhale, equal parts pity and scandal. She'd play it well, head tilted just enough to look dazed but not dramatic. But underneath, I imagined she was squirming. Because when you lie, it's not just about the words. It's about what isn't happening. The bank cards weren't reactivating. The college fund access was gone. Even the Netflix account failed to renew. And when Rebecca tried logging into the planning app we'd set up together for the wedding custom-built, because I'd once worked in UI/UX for an events tech firm, she got a polite error. This subscription has been terminated by the account holder. No warning. No backup. No more data as a service. By week 3, Denise was on the phone with my old HR rep at Greystone Analytics. I know because that rep forwarded me the call log off the record as a favor. She asked if you'd cashed out your 401k, he said. Wanted to know if you were having a mental break. What did you tell her? He laughed. Told her you were on indefinite sabbatical. That's all she needed to know. Denise must have been thrilled with that. Indefinite sabbatical is corporate code for burnout, divorce, or disappearance. Vague enough to suggest trauma. Specific enough to sound like fact. And most importantly, legally airtight. She tried calling the lawyer who handled our will. No answer. She tried logging into the online banking portal. Access denied. She emailed my brother, whom I hadn't spoken to in over a year, and asked if he'd heard from me. He wrote back 2 words. Not lately. By month's end, the narrative was getting harder to maintain. You can only cry abandonment for so long before people start asking logistical questions. Rebecca had to switch to Denise's insurance plan. Denise had to use her own line of credit for the wedding deposit. And when the florist asked about the final check, Denise muttered something about restructuring assets. Meanwhile, my digital footprint evaporated. LinkedIn, deleted. Twitter, scrubbed. Facebook, never used it. Easy win. I left behind no trail of despair. No breadcrumb of pity. Just blank space. And that's worse than a goodbye. It leaves people to invent one. At brunch a month later, one of Rebecca's friends asked if she thought I was, okay. She hesitated, blinked, said, I think he had a midlife crisis. Oh, the girl replied, stabbing her avocado toast. Like, with a motorcycle or something? Rebecca smiled tightly. No, with silence. But silence in the right hands is strategy. Because while they were shaping the story, I was shaping something else. An entirely new identity, built not on escape, but on precision. My time in the cabin wasn't for sulking. It was for rebuilding. Quietly, relentlessly, and I wasn't alone. But that part, they wouldn't discover until much, much later. It started with a bounced login. Denise tried to access my pension account on a rainy Thursday. She still had the old bookmarks saved in her browser. She entered my social. Her birthday, her favorite password. Nothing worked. She reset. Checked the credentials again. Still nothing. She tried calling the helpline, but after verifying her identity and relationship, the woman on the other end replied, I'm sorry, Mrs. Jennings, but you're not listed as an authorized contact. What do you mean I'm not listed? She snapped. I'm his wife. Pause. We have no record of that on file, ma'am. Denise hung up without saying goodbye. That weekend, she hosted a small wine and planning gathering for Rebecca and the bridal crew. Someone joked about her needing to pull Mark's pension funds to help cover the floral arch. Denise, with her usual half-laugh and full-glass smirk, waved it off. Oh, that's not an issue. It's already handled. It wasn't, because 2 days later, her own lawyer called her back. Voice cautious, the kind of voice people use when they're tiptoeing around a landmine in heels. There's a problem, he said. What kind of problem? I did some digging after you sent me the plan documents. Your husband, well, ex-husband, if he filed anything recently. He hasn't, she cut in, right? Well, regardless, years ago he set up a living trust. Out of state. Ironclad privacy clauses. And I don't just mean boilerplate privacy, I mean layered with firewalls, burn after reading type clauses. You're not on it. Not on it? She repeated. But he wouldn't, he can't. He can, and he did. The trust holds all the major assets. The consulting firm shares, the real estate partnerships, even the pension. All funneled through it. That's illegal. It's not. He did it clean. Smart even. The trust structure predates your marriage by about 6 months. That's not possible, she whispered. But her voice was already cracking. Oh, and there's one more thing. The trust does list Rebecca. But it's conditional. Conditional. According to the document, she receives access upon fulfilling 3 criteria. 1. Completing a degree, any degree, even associates. 2. Maintaining full-time employment for 1 full year. And 3. He hesitated. 3 what? 3. Establishing proof of independent residence for more than 18 consecutive months, without financial assistance from you. Silence. Denise stood in her kitchen, wine glass forgotten on the counter, eyes fixed on the wall like it had personally betrayed her. She finally managed to breathe. So you're telling me he predicted she'd still be here at 26, with no job, no lease, and no spine? I'm not telling you anything, Denise. He is. She hung up. For the first time since I walked out, Denise wasn't angry. She was rattled. Because everything she thought she had in reserve, all the fallback plans, the emergency cushions, the leverage, wasn't just gone. It never existed in the first place. She called my old attorney 3 times that week. He never answered. Sent a formal letter. No reply. Rebecca tried once too. She got the same response. We cannot verify this trust exists under any name you've provided. And that was the point. The trust didn't list Mark Jennings. It listed a holding alias tied to a retired consultancy formed back when I was still flying international, long before Denise even knew which arm I wore my watch on. I wasn't hiding money. I was hiding intention. You see, some men plan for retirement. I planned for evacuation. In my cabin, I read through the trust docs again, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to remind myself. I had not reacted. I had prepared. Every clause was surgical. Every condition earned. Even the wording. In the event of familial estrangement, emotional detachment, or abandonment of reciprocal obligation. All terms my second attorney had carefully crafted. I paid him in gold-backed crypto. He smiled when I did. Back in suburbia, Denise tried to regain control of the narrative. At brunch, she told the girls. He tricked us. He must have hired some offshore shark to rewrite everything behind my back. But when her lawyer sent over the time-stamped revisions and document logs, she went silent. The dates didn't lie. The groundwork had started 5 years ago, before the cold dinners, before the wedding plans, before Rebecca ever said, "He'll give up soon." Denise finally understood. I hadn't given up. I had opted out. And nothing she built on top of that illusion was ever going to last. It was supposed to be a throwaway post. Just another curated square of smoothies, mountain mist, and enlightenment hashtags. The kind of content no one really looks at until it sets your life on fire. A distant cousin of Denise's, Sarah, or maybe Stephanie, no one remembers because she lives on almond flour and goat yoga, uploaded a carousel from her transformational retreat in British Columbia. There were the usual suspects. Moss-covered trail shots, waterfall selfies, a shot of her legs in front of a campfire with the caption, "Healing looks like this." But slide 6? That's the one that cracked something open. It showed a room full of people in ergonomic floor chairs, all staring at a tall, lean man in a fitted black pullover and slate-gray slacks. Mid-gesture, confident posture. No notes, just presence. The caption read, "Incredible keynote by MJ. Never met a speaker who made silence feel like strategy." Denise nearly dropped her phone. She zoomed in twice, then gasped. That's him. Rebecca was across the room, flipping through bridal catalogs, half listening. What? Denise turned the screen. That's your father. Rebecca took the phone, squinted, said nothing. It had been 3 years. 3 years of whispered theories and half-truths. Of pretending they'd been the ones left behind, martyrs of some mystery. They'd built an entire mythology around my disappearance. Now there I was, casually reinvented, standing in front of a dozen eager strangers, looking 10 years younger and 20 pounds leaner. Rebecca zoomed in tighter. There was no mistaking it. The salt and pepper hair, now more salt than pepper, was cropped clean. The shoulders pulled back like someone who had nothing left to apologize for. He didn't look like a man in hiding. He looked like a man who no longer needed to be found. Denise, of course, started spiraling immediately. Why British Columbia? What the hell is he doing leading retreats? Why does he look so smug? Rebecca still hadn't said anything. Later that night, after Denise had stomped off to bed in a huff, muttering something about narcissism and cults, Rebecca sat alone at the kitchen island, glass of wine untouched. She stared at that image for a long time. Not with anger, not even confusion, with something else. Something bordering on curiosity. Because deep down, part of her remembered the dad who once taught her to code JavaScript before school. The man who built her a private website for her 16th birthday to post her poetry. She remembered how he used to leave sticky notes with quotes from philosophers on her mirror. When you are no longer disturbed by the opinion of others, you've found your power. Back then, she'd rolled her eyes. Now, she wondered if that quote had been more of a warning. The next morning, she printed the photo, slid it into a wedding planning binder Denise never bothered to open. She didn't say why, but 2 weeks later, She did something neither her mother nor anyone else expected. She tracked down the P.O. box from an old form he'd filled out back when she was applying for financial aid. It was a long shot, outdated, probably expired, but she sent the envelope anyway. No note, no emotional plea, just a cream-colored invitation. Simple, elegant, addressed in her own handwriting. Inside, Rebecca Lynn Jennings and Anthony Calero request the honor of your presence. There was no RSVP deadline, no +1 box, just an extra line, added in pen beneath the printed text. If you're still out there, I want you to walk me down the aisle. She sealed it with trembling fingers, mailed it, told no one, especially not Denise, because despite the curated rage and layered narratives, something had shifted in Rebecca when she saw that photo. She didn't see a deserter. She saw power, and she wanted it near her, even if she didn't know exactly why. Even if the man in the photo had become a stranger, because that stranger looked sure. And in a world of bridal chaos and motherly manipulation, a sliver of certainty was more seductive than any father-daughter dance playlist. Weeks passed. No reply, until a single envelope arrived one morning. No return address, no markings except her name in that familiar surgical handwriting. Inside, one card, plain, white, 7 words. If I come, no one can know. Rebecca smiled, slipped it into the back of her binder, and didn't say a word. The sky that morning was a dull pewter gray, the kind that makes everything feel heavier than it is. Vendors bustled around the venue. Florists fluffing petals, caterers checking chafing dishes, someone screaming about a missing extension cord like the fate of the universe depended on it. The groom's uncle arrived first, obnoxiously early in a cobalt blue blazer with elbow patches, already 2 mimosas deep. By 10 a.m., the parking lot looked like a dealership showcase. Mercedes, Lexus, something with butterfly doors, family, friends, the usual suspects. Then, around 10:47, a black car pulled up behind the venue, not in the valet loop, but the service drive, the kind of arrival that avoids announcement. Matte black Lincoln MKS, no plates visible, tinted windows, clean as a confession. The driver didn't get out. The rear door opened slowly. Mark stepped out, and for a moment, just a moment, the world around him paused. Charcoal suit, immaculately tailored, sharp at the shoulders and narrow at the waist. No tie, just a pressed white shirt, one button undone, like he knew exactly how much air to let in. His hair was cut close at the sides, silver streaks deliberate, not apologetic. He was tanned, posture straight, eyes like steel marbles, not looking around, just ahead. Behind him stepped another man, mid-40s, Middle Eastern maybe, clean-shaven, in a navy suit with a subtle federal pin on the lapel. Not a detail most would catch, but one man did. The venue's security chief, a retired officer moonlighting for extra cash, stepped slightly forward, scanning the 2 men as they passed the staff gate. He didn't stop them, just gave a single respectful nod, the kind of nod men give other men when they recognize rank without knowing why. The pair walked along the hedgerow, not toward the front entrance with the balloon arch and rustic welcome sign, but around the back, near the private garden. A photographer raised his camera instinctively, then paused, whispered to his assistant, "Who the hell is that?" Word spread quickly. Someone's aunt whispered, "He looks like someone famous." A groomsman stared and said, "No way, no freaking way." Even Anthony, the groom, turned from his position near the altar, squinting toward the garden path like he'd seen a ghost wear Armani. Denise, meanwhile, was still inside the bridal prep suite, blissfully unaware. She was berating the makeup artist over an allegedly uneven contour. "I look tired," she complained. "I'm not supposed to look tired on my daughter's wedding day." The makeup artist resisted the urge to say what everyone else was thinking. "You are tired. You've been tired since he left." Rebecca, in a separate room, stood in her dress, veil lifted, hands shaking ever so slightly, not from nerves about vows, but from the anticipation of a single question. Did he get the letter? And just as the planner stepped in to announce, 5 minutes to aisle, her phone buzzed. No caller ID, just a single text. "Ready," she exhaled, then whispered, "He's here." Outside, Mark and the man walked slowly along the hedge until they reached the side gate. The partner spoke first. "You're sure you want to do this?" Mark didn't answer right away. He adjusted his cufflink, stamped with the emblem of his holding company. One Rebecca didn't even know existed. Then he said, flatly, "I'm not here to prove anything. I'm here to walk my daughter down the aisle." The partner nodded. "I'll be inside if you need a perimeter." It was half joke, half real. Because what no one knew, what Denise would only learn weeks later, was that the man beside Mark was his co-founder in a venture fund with partial federal contracts in clean energy defense tech. A fund they launched 2 years prior. A fund that had already returned 8 figures to its LPs. Mark didn't just disappear. He evolved. And the man walking beside him now was living proof that whatever world he'd built post-vanishing wasn't just stable. It was powerful. Guests had started to murmur. Whispered guesses. Old colleagues from Mark's consulting days were present. Blinking in disbelief. Elbowing each other like schoolboys. "Is that Jennings? No way. He went off-grid. I heard he's running ops in Europe. I thought he died." And then, as the quartet of violinists began to tune up, Mark disappeared behind the garden hedge with the planner, nodding silently. Back inside, Denise finally caught the edge of the murmurs. Someone said something about a black car. About him. She froze, walked to the hallway, peeked out, and saw the last edge of a charcoal suit disappearing into the procession room. Her breath caught. 3 years. No calls. No explanations. No apologies. And now he had shown up. Not with flowers. Not with groveling. But with posture. With presence. And with someone beside him who looked like the kind of man you didn't interrupt in a meeting. Denise didn't speak. Not yet. She just gripped the edge of her clutch so hard it left imprints in her palm. Because now the power balance had changed. And the ceremony hadn't even begun. The hush that swept across the ceremony room wasn't dramatic. It was thick, like sound itself decided to step back for a moment and watch. Every guest rose from their seats in obedient reverence. Their faces turned toward the arched double doors. The strings began their delicate swell. Pachelbel, of course. Predictable. Traditional. Safe. And everyone expected the same safe image. Rebecca, radiant in ivory lace, one arm hooked through Denise's, the two of them descending the aisle in a staged moment of female solidarity, unity, strength, the narrative Denise had been polishing for months. She'd rehearsed her smile for it, practiced it in the mirror, thought it would wipe clean 3 years of unanswered questions with a single walk and a well-timed tear. But the doors opened, and the story fell apart. It wasn't Denise. It wasn't even close. There stood Rebecca. Posture straight, chin lifted, veil tucked just behind her crown. But it was Mark on her arm. Silent, steady, undeniably present. Every head in the room pivoted like choreography gone wrong. Gasps, audible stutters. Somewhere near the back, someone dropped a program. Rebecca took the first step. Mark moved with her, his pace matched, his face unreadable. Not cold, not proud, just complete. He didn't glance around, didn't scan the room for reactions. He looked straight ahead, as if this path had always been inevitable. And Denise? She didn't breathe. She stood near the front, just off to the side with the bridal party, clutching a bouquet she didn't even remember picking. Her mouth was slightly open, the smile she'd rehearsed now twitching at the corners like it didn't know if it was supposed to die or fake it, because he wasn't supposed to be here. And if he was here, he sure as hell wasn't supposed to be walking their daughter down the aisle. Rebecca hadn't told her. No one had. Not the planner. Not the coordinator. Not even Anthony, who blinked so hard his contact lens visibly shifted. The only person who knew, the only one who'd known for weeks, was the one who'd asked. Because Rebecca had reached out after that envelope came back. Not once. Not twice. But 3 times. The last time she didn't beg. She just sent him a single sentence. "If you're the man I remember, walk me into the next chapter like I matter again." He replied with 7 words. On one condition. Tell no one else. Now here they were. Each step echoing through a room that wasn't just watching. It was recalibrating. Denise's sister leaned forward and whispered, "Did you know he was coming?" Denise didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on Rebecca's hand, curled trustingly around the forearm of the man they'd both tried to erase. She remembered the group chat now. The messages. The emojis. He'll give up soon. She hadn't known he was building a wall, one legal clause, one transfer, one exit plan at a time. And now he was walking through it. Rebecca stopped just short of the altar. She turned, kissed Mark lightly on the cheek. No words, just a nod. And he let go of her hand like a surgeon finishing the final stitch. Then walked to the far side of the seating area, calm, unbothered, the kind of stillness that radiates power without asking for permission. Anthony stepped forward, trying to recover the moment, offering his arm. Rebecca took it. But every camera in that room had already caught the image that mattered. The daughter, the vanished man, the ex-wife, pale and blinking, clutching silk flowers like they might wake her up. The officiant stumbled slightly on his opening line. Dearly, beloved, we are gathered. He cleared his throat. Denise sat down. Hard. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She didn't have to, because in that moment, everyone saw what she didn't. Mark hadn't returned to reconcile. He'd returned to reclaim dignity. Not through words, not through spectacle, through presence. And from this moment forward, nothing she said about him, no story, no accusation, no spin, would be louder than the sight of their daughter choosing him for the moment that mattered most, and doing it in silence. By the time dessert was served, Denise had found her footing, or at least what was left of it. The wine helped, so did the compliments. Guests, oblivious to the earlier visual earthquake, had reverted to the usual post-ceremony hum, fawning over the dress, commenting on the playlist, pretending not to judge the steak options. Denise clung to those conversations like life rafts. She laughed too loudly at the groom's father's story. She adjusted her necklace every 10 minutes, as if the pearls might reposition the narrative. But in her mind, the only thing playing on loop was that aisle. Him. Rebecca. No warning. No explanation. Just silence that somehow said everything. Still, she had one weapon left. The mic. She'd been planning the toast for weeks. Wrote it out in 2 formats. Funny and heartfelt. And chose the latter when her sister said it made her cry, in a good way. This was supposed to be the moment she reclaimed grace. The loving mother, rising above, extending an olive branch to the man who, technically, hadn't been declared legally dead but had certainly been socially eulogized. She motioned to the DJ. He nodded. Cut the music. Clink, clink, clink. The crowd hushed. She stood at the head table, wine glass in hand, smile carefully calibrated. Soft, emotional, polished. The kind of smile that says I've been through hell, but I'm choosing love today. Hi, everyone, she began, voice lilting. I just wanted to say a few words. It's been a beautiful day, filled with so much joy. Watching my daughter step into this new chapter. It's every mother's dream. Polite nods. Rebecca looked up from her plate, guarded. And I know, Denise continued, tone shifting subtly, that today came with some surprises. Laughter, hesitant but present. She pressed on. One of those surprises was seeing someone we haven't seen in a long time. Someone who, despite everything, showed up today. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge that. Her eyes scanned the room, found Mark. He was seated 2 tables back, beside a man no one could identify. Same one from earlier, still expressionless, still sipping water like a detail in a security perimeter. I want to raise a glass, Denise said, holding hers higher. To the man who returned to be a father again. Silence. Mark didn't move, didn't raise his glass, didn't even blink. He looked through her. The silence stretched. Denise, still smiling, turned toward the guests. To second chances, she said, trying to keep it from quivering. And that's when Rebecca stood. No mic, just her. She tapped her glass with the side of her fork. Sharp, deliberate, a clearer sound than Denise's. Hi, she said. I wasn't planning on saying anything, but since we're acknowledging people who made today possible, she looked at Mark, then back at the crowd. I want to thank my father. Denise froze. Rebecca continued. Not just for being here or for walking me down the aisle, but for something more. Pause. For protecting me. In ways I didn't understand until now. A ripple passed through the room. An emotional shift so subtle, it didn't knock anything over, but left the centerpieces trembling. Denise's smile cracked. Rebecca held up a folded paper. Some of you know that when I was applying to grad school, things got complicated. I was told there wasn't enough in the fund, that we'd have to wait. That timing just wasn't right. A few nods. Well, it turns out that wasn't the full story. She unfolded the paper. This is a letter from the trust manager of a private fund that's been in place since I was 19. One I never knew existed. She paused, her voice suddenly softer. Today, I learned that trust is fully funded. For education, for health, for my future. Whispers. And it was funded by my father. Quietly. Entirely. A slow inhale from Denise. Rebecca turned, finally looking directly at her mother. I wasn't told about it. He didn't boast. Didn't use it to leverage love. He just made sure I'd be okay. No matter what you told me about him. Denise's hand, still holding the wine glass aloft, began to shake. Mark remained seated, unmoving, like a monument left behind after a battle people pretended never happened. Rebecca raised her glass toward him. To the man who protected me before I knew I needed protecting. Clink. She sat. The DJ didn't start the music. No one moved. Denise stood there, arms still half raised. A smile on her face and fire behind her eyes. But no applause. No echo. Just silence. She lowered her glass. And for the first time that day she looked small. Because no toast can override a daughter's choice. And no performance can compete with truth. Said plainly, in front of everyone you tried to convince otherwise. She'd wanted to frame the return. But the frame cracked. And the painting chose itself. It started innocently enough. Just a post on Instagram. A bridesmaid's boyfriend, who barely knew anyone and had been bored out of his mind all night, snapped a picture during the processional. He wasn't trying to stir drama or court mystery. He just thought it looked cool. That the bride walked down the aisle with a guy who looked like a Bond villain who decided to become a monk. The caption read, "Bride's dad pulled a ghost move, showed up like royalty. No one saw it coming. #silent power." The photo itself wasn't perfect. Slight blur. Mid-stride. Rebecca's dress catching sunlight. Mark in his charcoal suit, jaw set, posture upright. A single hand guiding her with the kind of subtle care that doesn't beg attention. It commands it. But that image ignited something. By the time the cake was cut, it had 3,200 likes. Mostly friends of friends. Then someone reposted it on X. Tagged it. "Is this Mark Jennings? From Protean Capital?" Thought he disappeared. And that's when it spread. By midnight, the comments section had mutated into a live investigation. Wait. Is this the Mark Jennings? Didn't he ghost his whole family? Nah man, I worked at Protean, he was brilliant. But quiet. Then just gone. That man's not broke. Look at the watch. Patek. Rose gold. The way he's standing. That's a man who owns silence. Someone dug up a conference photo from 2015. A keynote in Lisbon. Same chin, same eyes. But the man in the wedding photo looked sharper. Not older, sharper. Like solitude had been less of a retreat and more of a forge. Then came the LinkedIn rumor mill. Despite his profile being wiped, a junior associate from a clean tech think tank in DC posted anonymously on a forum. My firm's founder used to refer to this mysterious MJ as his first backer. Said he walked away from everything and still funds ops from a private trust. Speculation snowballed. By 3 a.m., 2 finance gossip sites had picked it up. Did this former consultant just stage the coolest re-entry in wedding history? Where has Mark Jennings been for 3 years? And what's with the shadow partner? The second piece included a blurry zoom-in of Mark's companion from the wedding. Navy suit, subtle pin, stone-serious face. And that was enough for the Reddit thread to explode. That's a federal pin. Low tier but real. I think it's the mark of a DoD subcontractor. He's in defense tech now. This guy left a whole identity and came back for one day and still made every other dad look like they forgot to wear socks. Meanwhile, Rebecca's original planner got flooded with DMs. Who was the father? Why was it secret? Would they speak to Vanity Fair if asked? She didn't reply. Because by dawn, the story wasn't hers to shape anymore. It belonged to the algorithm. Back at the reception, as lights dimmed and guests filtered out with gift bags and half-finished glasses of Prosecco, Mark had already vanished again. No long goodbyes. No spotlight farewells. He slipped out the side gate, the same way he'd entered. Quietly, methodically, as if he'd never been there at all. But his shadow stayed. The groom's aunt called her husband that night and said, "You remember Denise's ex? He's something else now." The husband didn't ask what that meant. He just nodded like most men do when they know another man has reclaimed his own myth. And Denise? She didn't sleep. She scrolled, and scrolled, and scrolled, until she saw a retweet from a minor venture capital account. Someone she didn't follow, someone she'd never met, tagging the now viral wedding photo with just 6 words. Not gone, just building somewhere else. It had over 18,000 likes by then, and she couldn't stop staring at it. Because the man she'd spent years erasing hadn't needed to correct her. He'd let a single image, just one, do all the talking. And in a world addicted to noise, that was power. The music had faded into background hum. The last slice of cake, untouched. Somewhere behind the tent, a groomsman threw up in the bushes, unnoticed. Staff began breaking down string lights, collecting half-burned candles, tossing away the tiny illusions of perfection that weddings cling to. Rebecca was on the dance floor, laughing with Anthony, veil gone, hair loosened. Her posture had shifted, lighter, less rehearsed. Mark saw it from a distance, standing just outside the trellis gate that led into the garden, alone under a canopy of dim fairy lights and rustling leaves. He didn't sip champagne, didn't fidget with his watch, just stood there, still, watching a life that no longer needed him but finally saw him. Denise found him there. She walked slowly, clutch in hand, dress hem brushing dew-slick grass. The heels she'd sworn were comfortable enough for all day wear were starting to betray her, just like everything else. She stopped a few feet behind him. No words at first. He didn't turn, didn't offer the courtesy of acknowledgement. So she gave herself permission. "You really became someone," she said quietly. Her voice was soft, unsteady, like someone testing a theory they don't quite believe but want to see proven. Mark turned his head slightly, not fully, just enough for the garden light to catch the edge of his jawline. "No," he said, then finally turned to face her. "Eyes sharp, tired, but clean. Not angry, not smug. You just finally opened your eyes." She flinched, because deep down she knew it was true. She thought she had built the story, the victim of the ghost husband, the brave matriarch, the devoted single mom. But all she'd done was narrate a silence that didn't belong to her. Denise looked away for a moment, inhaled, as if she was going to try again, say something clever, something heartfelt, maybe even ask. But he was already walking, not fast, just steady, like he didn't owe her more than what he'd already given, like he'd said everything and how he'd shown up, not for her, but for the daughter who had made her own quiet choice. Denise stood frozen, clutch limp at her side, mascara stiff under her eyes. The garden lights flickered in the wind. Her heels sank slightly into the earth. No one came to find her. No one even noticed she was gone. Mark passed the catering truck, the exit path, the valet stand. The man from earlier, his business partner, was already waiting near the black car. Mark didn't speak, just nodded, got in. The door shut with a muffled click, the kind that doesn't announce a departure. It ends a chapter. The car pulled away in silence. And for the first time in 3 years, Denise realized she hadn't lost him at the wedding. She'd lost him long before, and he hadn't come back to be reclaimed. He came back so their daughter could see who he really was. And then he left, not in bitterness, not in rage, but in the one currency she never learned to spend wisely: finality.